Welcome, guys. My name is Tandekile, and welcome to the Financial Awakening, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Financial Awakening, a place where we are looking for and we're seeking financial awakening. That's basically what it is. That's basically what we're doing here, and that's basically what we want. And today's episode, we're going to be speaking about debt, how to better manage your debt, right? So, debt it's got its pros and cons, and sometimes it feels like debt can be a lot. And debt doesn't necessarily have to be something that we can't manage or that is bad for you. It's just how we manage our debt. It's so important for us to learn how to manage our debt better so that it benefits us in the end. That is the primary goal of what we want to do. So, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 things that you need to take into consideration so that you're able to manage your debt a little bit better and so that it works to your benefit. So the first one is be wary of the debt you have access to. So a lot of financial institutions, right, either from your banking apps or from the SMSs we receive, will say that you can afford to get this type of debt, right? So they can tell you that you qualify for this amount of money, you qualify for this and that, but what we don't realize is that all these financial institutions are actually businesses. They are running a business and they want to make a profit. And how do they create their income and revenue? Is through offering you debt so that you can pay them interest, right? So even though sometimes it feels really good to have a capital amount readily available to you because you've got this credit facility that allows it, sometimes it's not beneficial to you. So sometimes you actually need to suss out, do I really need this debt? Why am I using this debt? Is this debt going to benefit me in the future? Those are important questions to ask yourself. And if you really need to use debt, look around. You don't need to go for the first option that you see or that they're offering you. You need to look around and you need to search for what is going to be beneficial for you if you actually need it. The onus is always on you to make sure that you use debt responsibly, because in as much as you would love to have this capital amount, you can't forget that you are paying someone interest, which means that you're paying them for this capital amount that they've given you. And this payment that you're making can be happening for subsequently a lot of months, right? Which means that you would have to pay this monthly installment, or you need to do this monthly repayment of this debt on a monthly basis. And that will take away from the income that you're generating on a month-to-month basis. So the onus is on you to make sure that you're making the right decisions and not taking on every single debt that is readily available to you. The next one is ramp up your disposable income. So some of us are already in debt, right? And some of us are already really deep into debt. And, sometimes it can feel extremely hard to get out of this situation of all these debts that we have, because we have to make these monthly repayments. And it's taking away from our livelihoods. It's taking away from ourselves, and our future selves, because we're basically paying someone else for a longer period of time, right? And in most instances, what we want to do is make sure that we can pay off this debt a little bit quicker. And the best way to do it is look at your disposable income. Now, when we speak about disposable income, we are basically saying that it is your income less any expenses that you pay on a month-to-month basis. Okay, so this could be your rent, your car repayments, your food, your petrol, and stuff like that. But in the expenses that you have, there's some things that you generally don't need, right? There's some things that you generally don't need, guys. You don't need to buy all the alcohol that you buy if you do drink alcohol. You don't need to go to all those fancy shops that you go to go buy your groceries. You don't need to go buy all the shoes that you may want, ladies. Sometimes you need to reduce how much you're spending. And the reason why I'm saying that is because it's beneficial to you, because any money that is left over from your disposable income can be added onto the debt repayment. So you're paying off your debt a little bit quicker. So what that generally means, right, is that if you're adding more money into the outstanding amount that you owe in your debt. That means you're paying off less interest and you're adding money more into the capital that you owe, right? Which means that in actual fact, you're going to pay off your debt much quicker and you're going to owe less, which means that you're going to reduce the amount that you owe the bank or even eliminate it in totality. What we want to do is reduce the debt as much as possible or pay it off at a shorter period of time. And the biggest way to do that is to add more money into your debt, right? And to be honest, guys, what we generally know is that we don't all have money lying around or we don't have several income streams. Sometimes we have to make do with the income that we have. And within the income that we have, we need to look at how we're spending that income. And because of that, that's where we need to start looking at what exactly our expenses, what are our needs, what are our wants, right? And in our wants, do we really need to spend on that, or would you get more gratification in knowing that you paid off your debt quicker so that you have in the future, that is, more money coming to you? The next one is pay off the debts that have a higher interest rate. Now, when you go for debt, right, there's various types of debt. So there's a debt when you buy a house. There's a debt when you buy a car. There's a debt on personal loans, obviously, because they're offering you debt. There's credit cards. There's clothing accounts. There's various types of debt that is available because they gave you credit, right? So with that being said, in these debts, there's debts that have different types of interest rates because of what you agreed to in terms of the percentage that you are willing to take in terms of an interest rate. Now, when you have the interest rates, it's important, if it feels like you can't pay off these debts, to start concentrating on the ones that have higher interest rates. Now, the ones with the higher interest rates mean that you're paying more in interest on them versus the ones that have a lower interest rate, right? So let's say, for example, you've got a debt that has an interest rate of 27.5%, and then you also have a debt that has 11% on it in terms of the interest rate. Now, you want to concentrate on the one that has 27.5% in interest rate, because what that means is that you're paying more in interest in comparison to what you're paying in capital, right? The intention of paying a debt is to make sure you try as quickly as possible to deplete the capital that you're paying on a month-to-month basis, right? And the only way you can do that is by adding more money to your debt repayments. So you are paying off the capital quicker, which means that they charge you less interest on your debt. So the quicker you pay off the higher interest rate debts that you have, it's going to be easier for you to pay off the interest, or rather the debts that have a smaller interest rate. The fourth one is save for the big ticket items. So, we don't just live our lives just to buy groceries and just pay for our house and pay for our car. There's other things that we want in life, right? Whether it be that you want to travel and go on holiday overseas, or whether it is that you want to buy yourself an expensive pair of shoes, whatever it is for you, right? You need to start thinking of saving towards that goal or saving towards that purchase, because sometimes it feels easier to pay for it through debt than it is to save. But when you save for it, what you're eliminating is having to pay someone that capital at a later stage and also having to pay them interest. By virtue of you saving up for it, when you've got the capital, you just buy it and it's fully yours. You don't owe anyone. It's a beautiful feeling, guys. I cannot tell you any further. It's a beautiful feeling to buy something cash, like cash. Just buy cash and you know that you don't owe anyone. So obviously there's certain things that you can't buy cash, like big ticket items like your house, your car, like really large ones, because obviously we don't have all that capital available to us. But there's certain things that are probable that you can pay for yourself if you just give yourself a couple of months to save towards. The last one is actually knowing the difference between good and bad debt. Now, what we need to actually realize is that debt is not all that bad. It actually benefits us sometimes. There's certain big ticket items that we generally can't afford without having debt, and that's your house, your car, and sometimes even your education. But there's some things that just need you to be a little patient, right? And save for a few months and know that you can actually accumulate it or acquire whatever you want. But using debt to acquire those small things can actually take you backwards. If you're using bad debt if you're using debt to consume things, right? You end up consuming them, but in 3 to 6 months, you've already forgotten about it, but you still have this debt repayment that you need to make on a month-to-month basis, which means that it's not beneficial to you over the long haul. So sometimes it's good for you to know the difference between good and bad debt and which one is going to benefit you at the end of the day. There's various types of debts readily available, but not all of them are beneficial to you. Like I stated, debt is really not that bad, but the management of debt is really important. You need to know how to utilize it to its fullest and not let it ruin your finances. A lot of people have found themselves in a place where their debt has not been managed in an appropriate way. And what that does is that they no longer have money to do the things that matter the most, whether it is living life in a sustainable way or actually growing the income that they're making on a month-to-month basis or in their businesses or whatever the case might be. But you don't want debt to be a hindrance, but rather you want it to enhance something that you currently have. So it's so important for you to know the difference between good and bad debt, and also know that you don't have to take up every single debt that is readily available. And if you're feeling like, I've got a lot of debt right now, and it's feeling like it's far too much for me to handle, sometimes you need to look at what are the various options for you to actually manage that debt and even eliminate it. I think in one of the episodes that I'm going to have a discussion between how to do your own debt management and debt consolidation, and which one is better and which one is not, depending on the situation at hand. But there's various ways of handling your debt. But what we want to get to is not having you in a place where you feel like you can't manage your debt, or it's getting far too much, or you're using debt not to enhance yourself, but just for current pleasure with future detriment. So that's it from me today. We were just basically speaking about debt because at the end of the day, guys, we want to grow and we don't want anything that's going to be a hindrance to us. So the first step to any personal financial management or financial planning is to make sure that we try and reduce the debt as much as possible, right? And we try and find the best type of debt. So with financial planning, it's easier to make sure that you actually are financially sustainable and make more money when you know that your debt is managed. Thank you very much for being here in my podcast. I'll see you on the next one. Please, if you feel like it, subscribe, switch on your notification bells, and comment, guys. I'd love to hear from you guys. Cheers.